You don't need to balance encounters. Use the encounters, put them up against the players, and if the players die, the players die. Let's try that again. Here are 5 amazing ways to balance low-level encounters. So low-level encounters are specifically harder to balance because you may have a barbarian with a high con who has an 8 who's got 12 health, and then you have a wizard who may have as low as 2 to 3 health. So how do I make sure that my wizard doesn't get one shot, but I'm still challenging the barbarian? This is a very difficult thing to do, but here are 5 things that may help you balance those low-level encounters from 1 to level 3. The first thing to do when balancing encounters, do not use intelligent monsters. Monsters that are dumb are going to attack the biggest threat, hence your barbarian. Levels 1 through 3 is where tanking needs to be a thing. Now your party naturally should put the barbarian, the fighter, the cleric, the warrior up front and try to keep their ranged melee, their ranged and their magic users behind. Allow your party to create that distance and don't use intelligent monsters so you can have them have some success in combat while not killing that mage. However, when the wizard casts a spell, make sure that the monster goes rip and then targets them. Then your characters can try to stop that monster. Tax of opportunity happens and the wizard finally gets to cast shield, hide, take cover, cast, do whatever they've got to do to get out of the way. It creates intensity, but at the same time makes it so the party is not always fighting for their low-level, low hit point people. Another good way to kind of balance low-level encounters is use the average damage or lower damage. If you're going to roll for damage, make sure that when you're rolling, you're willing to fudge some dice. Or cut the dice in half. If it's a D8, roll a D4. This is a way that you can actually control the damage. I like to use average damage for a lot of the times, especially when I'm attacking a low-level character. The thing is, a bugbear attacking a level 1 wizard can actually one-shot it with average damage because it is 2d8 plus 2, which means you're going to actually do some decent damage. You're going to actually put out some damage to that character, one-shotting them. So utilizing monsters, if you're going to use a big monster, you got to lower the damage. Otherwise, back to point 1, don't use intelligent monsters. Use people that are dumb, that'll attack the people that are in the front. That way your party can keep the wizard safe. Another way that you can help balance low-level encounters is not using boss monsters. Using multiple lower-level creatures that have lower damage allows for more damage to happen to the party so you can still have that intensity, but at the same time not one-shot your creatures. The one-shotting of not creatures, but necessarily characters. If your boss monster can one-shot a character, you have to make it so the party can somewhat control the battlefield, and they should know that ahead of time. So it's one of those things to consider. Don't use the boss monsters, but at the same time, make sure that you are making the party still feel the intensity with lots of monsters that deal lower damage, so that way it can be spread out across the party. Big, heavy-hitting monsters really should be reserved for later on. Or if your party has time to prep. If your party is going to do a boss monster, you have to give them the information to understand the battle that they're going into so they can actually make sure that their casters in range don't just die when they walk into there. So it's one thing to surprise your party, but another is to feel defeated when they walk in and the first thing that the boss monster does is pick off your caster because you as a dungeon master know that's what needs to be done. You have to not meta when you walk into these boss monster fights or fights in general. Otherwise, your party will feel very frustrated in the lower levels specifically. The other thing to do to balance lower level encounters is to not pick on the party's weaknesses. From level 1 through 3, your party is missing hit points, they're missing resources, and so if you pick on their weaknesses, you are going to demolish them. Especially if you throw higher difficulty level creatures at them that can possibly one-shot them. Intelligent creatures plus boss monsters plus picking on their weaknesses ends in party wipe. Remember, I like to go to rule 1 that I had, using dumb monsters, so therefore they're not picking on their weaknesses. And when I have dumb monsters, I absolutely play them as dumb. And if I have smart monsters, I play them as if they're encountering the party for the first time. And remember, if wizards are a common thing, people will know what your wizard looks like. So there's a possibility your wizard may want to dress non-wizardy, look more like an adventurer, carrying a dagger, look like a rogue, possibly a ranger, using a crossbow. That may be something that's encouraged in your campaign setting to keep them from getting their butt whooped. food for thought. The fifth thing you want to do when it comes to balancing low-level encounters is just to pay attention to party dynamic. Pay attention to how your party is fighting, and don't put things in front of your party that actively try to kill the lesser hit point characters. This goes back to all the points we previously talked about, but it comes down to tactics. This is not an us versus them game. The goal is to give encounters that challenge the party, but allow the party to still use their abilities. At low levels, I like to use creatures with incredibly low damage, but lots of them. I change zombies to only doing a bite and doing 1d4 damage, period. So that way, if a wizard does get hacked, the zombies I use also move at 10 foot, and I use waves of them. So the players are trying to dish out damage. The zombies aren't doing a ton of damage to them, but it seems like an overwhelming force because they're so hard to kill, so it seems intense. A lot of times, if you just take the damage output of a creature and you drop it down to the bare minimum and you up their hit points, you can make those battles feel more epic at lower levels. A lot of people like to skip the lower levels as opposed to trying to make them feel bigger. They're just like, we get past them as quickly as possible. I love the intensity at lower levels. So I like to use higher damage threshold monsters, lower damage output. Makes the battles feel bigger, feel beefier. The lower level characters can take the damage. The higher level characters, I say higher hit point characters, can actually withstand it. So those are my food for thought. That's 5 really good ways to balance lower level counters. It's thinking a little outside of the box. And thank you guys very much for joining us. We'll have more inside shooting, but I need to get a head-on video, so I took this opportunity to shoot in my lovely gazebo. So smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and let us know below how you like to balance lower level encounters, or what problems you're having balancing low level counters, and maybe we can address it. We will see you next time.